May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cornell.
Here.
Trustee Listener.
Here.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Mulvaney.
Here.
Trustee Thomas.
Here.
Trustee Vree.
Here.
All righty. Our first order of business is consideration of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole and the Village Board meeting for May 17th, 2018. Does anybody have any changes or correction or thoughts? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second?
May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cornell.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney.
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Trustee Vree.
Yes.
Okay, this is the time when anybody who wishes to address us on a subject not on the agenda may do so. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board? Thank you. All right. In our committee of whole this evening, we covered two subjects. We had a lengthy discussion about the new Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act that the state of Illinois just enacted, which essentially takes away local government's rights to regulate the right-of-way in order to protect our citizens as to what goes into it. And the ordinance, with the little bit of room that we have left, that our attorneys and our staff are working on to bring to us shortly to fill what little we can still do. And the second one was a very lengthy discussion with our Historic Preservation Commission that came to present thoughts on how we can look at doing a better job of preserving the historic houses within the village. And it was very enlightening, and staff will be working with us on pursuing a number of those ideas. Those were the two topics that we covered in the Committee of the Whole. Trustee Vree, could you tell us what went on in our Finance Committee?
Yes. So as usual.
Also welcome our new Director of Finance.
Oh yeah. Bill, I don't know if
You're stealing my thunder,
Yeah,
but that's
Phil,
okay.
have at it.
I have a whole script and everything, but that's fine. But no, Nikki it is Nikki Weston's first board meeting, so we'll make sure to embarrass her effectively. She is our new finance director for the last week and a half or so.
And she led us in a spectacular finance committee meeting. So we discussed our sort of normal topics. The village finances. Things are trending a little ahead of a little better than expected, primarily from real estate taxes. Some of it could be a prepayment from the tax change, the federal tax changes, and then a little bit from increases in the rate that we were charging. But they're only mildly ahead of plan. Generally speaking, the fund is running as expected. Water revenue is coming in quite a bit ahead of last year, and that's due to the rate increases. So that's also as expected. The second thing we talked about was our CIP. Another thing that we talk about at every meeting now. It's a smaller year from a capital expenditure perspective than we had last year. So there aren't a bunch of major projects this year. The biggest one will be the ERP system going in, and so we discussed the beginnings of that and looking at how that is progressing. So sort of a normal finance committee.
Thank you. Trustee Miller, did we have a plan commission meeting, or do we have one planned for the future?
We did not have a plan commission meeting. Work is about to accelerate, I guess you could say, on the Tudor Court project, which if the board approves this evening, the contracts with our outside design and engineering consultants, that work will begin in conjunction with our staff, and if it is done well, the Plan Commission will take full credit for it. However, at this point, others are handling that very capably.
Okay. Trustee Thomas, what's new with the golf course? I understand it's flooding and...
Yeah, I feel like it's a broken record. We've had so bad weather for the last 3 months that I keep starting my report by saying that weather has a definite impact on the golf course and rounds played and so forth. May was the wettest month on record. There were 2 days with 0 rounds played, and there were 10 days where carts were not allowed out, and that has a significant impact because there are a lot of people who, particularly those who are more mature, who will play only if they have a cart. That said, and it shows you, I think, how fickle all this can get. The Memorial Day weekend was a long weekend. It was spectacular weather, and we had so many rounds played over that weekend that it more than made up for the entire rest of the month. So the good news is that at this point, year to date, we are ahead of budget in revenues, below budget in expenses, which is exactly, of course, where you want to be. And things are going along, I'd say swimmingly, but that probably would be a bad term to use. Another thing I think is worth mentioning, part of sort of the community impact here, one of our instructors, Jeff Loud, brought his teaching expertise to the Central School for free. He spent hours with 7th and 8th graders, about 100 children, to just introduce them to the sport and encourage them to take it up. And that was a great success. And finally, rain notwithstanding, we continue to make improvements to the course. And I hope any of you who actually play can get out and see them, what Stella and Dave do with this course year to year, because of the money we plow back into the course, is really pretty extraordinary. Just the other day, I saw 1 or 2 people who had, I think it may have been in the Glencoe report, who had moved here from New York and had never played the course, and were quoted as saying they played it. They thought it was just beautiful. They couldn't believe how pretty it was. So again, I think we sometimes fail to appreciate just what a treasure the course is. That's it.
The key is, as long as we remember to appreciate Stella, she'll continue to do all this.
I'm curious, do you guys have a caddy program with the golf course? Is there a program for training and using caddies?
There is not really, but Stella.
No, we do not. Skokie and Lakeshore both have caddy programs.
Caddy programs are pretty unusual in public courses these days, but it's just partly a cost thing. It's not because we wouldn't want to encourage young people to earn some money in connection with the golf course. For example, I think I'm right, that we have sometimes college kids or others who have helped out in the summers in the past, not caddying, but working, helping me with the maintenance of the course and so forth, and I think that continues.
Okay. That brings me to asking Pete Mulvaney to tell us about the Sustainability Task Force.
The Sustainability Task Force met last month, and I'd like to just remind folks some of the things we're working on. Hopefully you've all been reading the monthly articles that we've been putting out in the Glencoe Anchor. It's a wonderful collaboration with them. This month you should see an article on the active transportation plan. We've been putting out these articles monthly now for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so, and we've got a schedule of topics coming up, but would love to hear if there are ideas or feedback from our articles from the board. We're welcome to hear it. We've also been considering looking at a community rating system for sustainability. So there are some standard community rating systems out there that guide and then certify activities and actions and policies of a municipality and rank them from a sustainability perspective. And so we're looking at the options there as a way to guide our way to the most sustainable and desirable community in the universe. The task force is also
Trustee Mulvaney, does that word get bigger every time you use it?
Well, as I learn about astronomy, and I'm, go from what's after the galaxy, then universe, and whatever's beyond that, if I learn
I
some
just
more,
really,
I'll
because
use
that
that.
formulation keeps on. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it was originally North Shore, and then I think the state, and then, the region.
Just keeps
the
growing.
Great Lakes, the U.S., you got it. So, we are also talking about, with the Plan Commission for the downtown recycling containers and trying to promote more recycling in the downtown commercial area, discussing ideas about what we could do, including the types of containers to clarify what gets recycled and how to collect in the downtown area. We have been, of course, working through the active transportation planning project, which has been a great success. I hear a lot of positive feedback about the community engagement, the surfacing of good ideas, and we continue to make progress with that plan, a great deal of public support.
Sort of when will it be published?
I don't know when the final result is. Look like, Phil, you're about to jump in.
I think we're hoping to bring a draft to the village board in September.
Yes, we're reviewing we reviewed the first half of the draft recommendations, so we're doing another meeting in July to review the second half. The consultant will come back with their final recommendations for consideration, and we'll have a draft presentation to have to the Park District Board, the village board, and the school district board considerations.
So we worked also, we had a booth most recently on that topic. We had a booth at the Grand Prix to receive additional feedback from the community. And I think anyways, I know we intended to have organic collection. Did that happen, Adam? Yes, so we also organized a chance here to collect the food waste, organic waste from the lunch area of the Grand Prix. And then last but not least, by any means, is our engagement with the Ravine Alliance. So the board, you recall, we've approved funding, capital funding for some outfall work in the ravines that drain into the Great Lakes, into Lake Michigan. And we've been working to create community alliances around the ravines to help manage the system as a whole. We can't manage all of our stormwater at the end of the pipe, which is where we have our capital investment. We need to manage the slopes, which are actually mostly owned by private owners. So we've been developing some engagement with owners around the ravines to participate and figure out the right way to address some of the erosion control issues that we have. So we've been working with, also engaged with the Public Works, and one of the things that the task force is thinking about doing is making some recommendations about the way we actually contract some of our engineering work and the types of skill sets that we would want to see solving some of our capital plans around stormwater. So that's just bubbling up as an idea, so that may be something we take on a little bit later. That is my monthly update. Oh, of course, everybody's welcome to join our Sustainability Task Force. Please come. I think the next one is next Tuesday here in Village Hall, 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Peter. All righty, trustee listener, tell us about the sesquicentennial and the coming farmers market and all sorts of things going on.
Yes, well, this is going to be a busy time for us. Starting this weekend, the Sesquicentennial Planning Committee is inviting all community members to share their ideas for a legacy project. So part of our Sesquicentennial celebration is going to include what we're calling this legacy project. It's, a lasting gift to the Glencoe residents, commemorating our 150th on the anniversary of incorporation. So just like we did for the downtown tune-up, Village is installing a candy chain style chalkboard outside of Village Hall on Wyman Green. Anyone interested in sharing their ideas for the Legacy Project can chalk them up on the board. We're going to have the board up through August 4th. And to kind of launch all of this, the members of the Sesquicentennial Planning Committee are going to be at the French Market this weekend from 10 till noon to talk to members of the community about our events and what we're going to be doing for the next year. And anybody who isn't able to stop by Wyoming Green can certainly submit any of their ideas to our website, which is at www.glencoe150.org. So there's a place on the website to submit suggestions for the Legacy Project.
Thank you. May I have the village manager's report, including having stepped on at your great introduction for
No problem.
Nikki?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased to formally introduce our new finance director, Nikki Larson. She started with us about a week and a half ago on June 11th, and I will say her excellent credentials are already being put to use on a daily basis, and I know she'll be a great asset to the village as we move forward. She has jumped in getting started with planning for the fiscal year 2020 budget, as well as focusing on our department, on the finance department and village and other village operations. We're going to be working on introducing her to the community, and I'm looking forward very much to her many, many contributions to Glencoe as finance director. So welcome, Nikki, and we'll put you to work, believe me. I wanted to take also a minute to state that now that Nikki has taken over the reins as finance director, I wanted to thank Denise Joseph, who served as interim finance director for almost 5 months. In that time, she managed day-to-day operations of the department as well as significant special projects, including facilitating the fiscal year-end and new fiscal year startup processes, oversight of the village's annual audit, management of the annual vehicle and animal license process, as well as the first few billing cycles of a completely new water rate structure. I am sincerely grateful to her for her leadership, her confidence, and most importantly, her perennial smile through this interim period and for the service that she provided to the Glencoe community. We were all very well served in that tenure, Denise, and thank you. And while I'm at it, I wanted to also note my thanks and gratefulness to all the rest of the members of the finance department staff that stepped up and took on new responsibilities through the interim period. Each individual, Margie Ziegler, Naringa Shapiro, Diane Serpi, and Julie Geyer, gave 110% to ensure that not a beat was missed in any of the day-to-day efforts or special projects. I think the board knows this already, but it's important to make mention of the fact that we have an excellent team working here for the village. The finance department often doesn't get called out on the carpet for being excellent because a lot of their services are behind the scenes, but I wanted to take a moment and just say thank you to all of them for all that they did the last several months and
Hear, hear.
what they'll continue to do. With that, I wanted to move into our next item, which is the presentation of some new reports that have been included in your packet tonight. As we discussed when the village board approved the new strategic plan in April, significantly updated and revised bi-monthly reports have been created to track progress on the strategic plan. The report will now also include tracking and management of data and key performance indicators. Margie Ziegler, who I just mentioned a minute ago from our finance department, as well as Megan Hoffman, are going to provide you all a brief overview of the new report. I would underscore that this report is in an early iteration, and it will be more and more comprehensive in each successive iteration over the coming year and beyond. So I'm going to kick it to Margie to walk us through, and Megan to give us a little bit of information in addition to that.
Good evening, everyone. The new format developed by the project team attempted to address 4 key goals. The first of which was to provide a structure that better aligns to the village's strategic plan. Here we moved from a department-based structure to a new structure with 6 key focus categories which better align to the village's strategic goals. Next, we wanted to provide a more reader-friendly at-a-glance format. Within the report pages, you'll find graphed data, performance indicator icons, call-outs, bullet point summaries that provide overviews and assessments in a more concise and visually appealing format. Next, we wanted to be sure to provide subject matter expert interpretation and narratives. Team members include representatives from each village department. These individuals either have the expertise or have access to individuals within their departments with the expertise to identify what's most important and why. And finally, we wanted to provide reporting flexibility. Instead of reporting a repeating set of standard metrics, the new report highlights what's new and what is relevant. The new format provides a flexibility to exchange and update metrics so that the most meaningful information is highlighted. Some metrics will be reported with each update. Many others will be replaced with new data sets that are appropriate for a particular time or provide new information or insights. Report icons help navigate the report metrics and performance. Performance indicators provide an assessment of performance, exceeds, near or at, or below expectations. Collecting data icon indicates that the village is in the process of gathering more data. A performance assessment might not be appropriate at this time. Measuring only indicates a metric that is monitored, but might not necessarily be assessed in terms of performance. And finally, hot topic and seasonal icons flag items that are topical in nature or that are relevant to a particular season. This month's report is an initial attempt to highlight topical, relevant information within a structure aligned to the village's strategic plan. We anticipate the report composition and format to continuously evolve, most likely with no true final format. A key next step is to complete a comprehensive data audit. Here we will assess what data we currently collect and should continue to collect. We will evaluate what additional data we should be gathering. We will determine how to best benchmark and evaluate that data and implement a process and structure for streamlined data collection. The ultimate project goal is to transform our data into actionable insights.
Along similar lines, and as Phil alluded to, moving forward, future bi-monthly reports will also include a more encompassing status update on our progress toward actually completing various initiatives and action items included in the strategic plan. So in the meantime, in lieu of that, I'm happy to report that quite a bit of progress has been made on implementation, and a KPI that was actually included in one of these reports was that over 40% of the village's full-time workforce has been assigned as either a team member or a team lead to one or more of the strategic plan initiatives and action items, over 40%. To aid in the success of the various teams, earlier this week, project management templates and other resources were provided to team leads, which will be followed up with brief project management training in the coming weeks. To roll out the plan to those village employees who may not be assigned to one of the initiatives or action items, the village manager's office has also begun a series of informal strategic plan presentations. Each village employee has been provided the same paper printout of the strategic plan that you were provided this evening, and the presentation gave them a little bit more of an overview of the plan, which also stressed their key importance to making sure that the strategic plan is a success ultimately. Moving forward, we're also rolling out some Glencoe Way customer service training and materials, and so as part of that presentation, they were giving a preview of some of what that internal branding will look like, which is one of the initiatives of the strategic plan. So we look forward to updating you more on our progress again in August.
Thank you.
Any questions?
This is available to not just the board. So this is
Yes.
something that residents can look at by clicking something or other on the website.
We intend to
right?
post it the day after the board meeting, after you all take it in and give us feedback.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say I reviewed all these. I thought they were excellent. I think this is a very good first step, or whatever step it is. It presents these things in a much clearer fashion than we've had in the past. I have one or two suggestions for graphs that I'll take off record here, but I just think this is real progress.
Thank you. I would just make mention of the fact that Margie led a team that created this new format and did so on a shoestring budget of time, and I think it really does underscore a new set of understanding and awareness at the staff level of the value of presenting data in a way that not only the board can find value in, but the community, but also to share that back with the rest of the staff. And that's a message that I'm carrying forward in those informal presentations that Megan mentioned. I'll be speaking with all of our staff over the next few weeks about the strategic plan and the fact that these are documents that may not mean a whole lot to them right now, but will begin to as we report back to them on progress and keep them engaged on the various initiatives. So this is a tool we intend to use with many different audiences. So I'm just grateful to the team for what they were able to accomplish. It was an interdepartmental team of folks that haven't really worked all that much together. And so I think what they were able to pull off was pretty great. So I look forward to the future iterations. All right. I just had a couple of other things I wanted to make mention of. We have, over the last year or so, taken on additional community awareness building efforts relative to speeding and being aware of pedestrians and others in the community, and I think that's a good step with that has been the active transportation plan. But something that's a little bit more concrete as an additional communication effort is starting early next week. Drivers in Glencoe will be reminded, whether they like it or not, to slow down thanks to 4 newly installed radar speed signs. The signs are located on eastbound Dundee near the south entrance to the Chicago Botanic Garden, on westbound Dundee near Bluff, northbound Green Bay Road near Adams, and on southbound Green Bay Road near the Takeoff Center. All of those are areas that have in the past been areas where we have seen some speeding concerns. Each of these areas was also selected because of high traffic volumes and/or proximity to pedestrian walking routes. 3 of the 4 signs are solar powered, and all 4 were paid for through a grant program sponsored by the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus as well as Commonwealth Edison. I think this is a nice example of interdepartmental cooperation. Our Public Works, Public Safety, and Village Manager's Office staff have all been involved in this effort, and I'm looking forward to them getting turned on next week. You may have seen them as you've been driving in and out of town, and wanted to point out to the fact that they will be in place. We have the ability to relocate them to other areas of town as necessary. So if there are concerns that a neighborhood mentions to us relative to speeding, we are able, particularly with the solar-powered speed signs, to move those into other locations, and we intend to evaluate that over the coming few months and years. So I'm looking forward to those being turned on, and I know that there are a number of people in town who have expressed their gratefulness that we'll be helping people remember what the speed limit is in town. Real briefly, I just wanted to make mention that about a week and a half ago, President Levin and I, as well as Dave Mao and Don Kirk, participated in a brief dedication ceremony for the new overlook at South Avenue, the South Avenue street end. I just wanted to acknowledge once again the $45,000 approximately in private donations from the Glencoe Community Foundation, as well as neighbors of the South Avenue street end, Josh and Lizzie Scheinfeld. This area has been improved with a crushed granite path leading to a flagstone paving area with several benches. If you haven't had a chance to walk down there, I'd encourage you to. It's actually a really beautiful new public space in the community. We're not quite done with the planting. We plan to put some additional landscaping in over the coming few weeks. The weather has not been helpful to us in that effort, but it is really a very pretty public space, and really a very calming spot to enjoy a cup of coffee or something like that. So I hope people do make their way down there at their convenience. And just wanted to make mention of a couple things. Obviously, the Glencoe French Market is open for the season. Last week, 2 weeks ago, excuse me, we had our first coffee with the boards. There's going to be another one coming up in August, and then again in October. And so we encourage people to attend. The first one was a little rainy, So we're hoping for better weather in subsequent ones. And then last but not least, we met this afternoon with the Park District because, believe it or not, the 4th of July is just about 2 weeks away. And we are, as usual, coordinating with the Park District the annual celebration, including our parade, the fireworks, and a number of other holiday traditions. Our website will have all of that information, as well as the Park District. So we hope everybody joins us on the 4th. And I wanted to just quickly make mention of the fact that we have seen a great deal of support from the community relative to our Patriotic Days Fund, and those checks continue to roll in. Those checks do subsidize the overall cost of the 4th of July events, and very grateful to the community for their generosity. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, let me move into some of our appointments. I would like to propose to the board the appointment of the Reverend Dwayne Gray of St. Paul's to the Community Relations Forum. May I have a motion to affirm his appointment?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it carries. Also, I would like to have a motion to appoint our new director, Nikki Larson, to the position of village treasurer and village collector. May I have a motion?
Second?
May I have a roll call on that, please?
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Listner?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney?
Yes.
Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
And I would add my great thanks to all of the wonderful people in the finance department and to Denise for the fabulous job they did holding down the fort for the last 5 months and getting us to this point where we have Nicole on board, and I'm looking forward to continuing to see lots of great things come out of all that. Tonight, Tom Shekelhoff has been called upon by us to do double service and many hours of time trying to keep us out of trouble, so we had him at our committee of the whole, and I would like to have Tom go over the 2017 Historic Preservation Commission annual report for the board.
Greg Turner, who's a commissioner as well, is going to show a little presentation on the website development that we've done, which is one of our focuses here. We designated 3 homes as landmarks in this past year. One is a certified landmark, the first one here, 885 Elm Place. The second is 411 Lakeside. We nominated that for an honorary landmark and was approved by the village board all in 2017. Unfortunately, the house has been subsequently demolished. That's one of the issues that we are dealing with in historic preservation. The third home was an honorary landmark designated in 2017, 228 Randolph Street. This was nominated by the owner, the homeowner, and we worked with him to get it through the designation, and it was approved by the village board last year. Demolitions, we had a number of significant demolitions, 5 of historic structures in 2017, of which I've showed pictures of a few. 854, you can go on to the next slide. Next one. Don't have those pictures, okay. 854 Bluff Street, which was a significant Glencoe structure certified in 1994, was demolished in 2017. 185 Franklin was a significant Glencoe structure by the Historic Preservation Commission in 1994. It's not on that picture at all. That was also demolished. 190 Lakeside Terrace was demolished in 2018, the beginning part of this year, which was a significant structure from 1994. Previously mentioned 411 Lakeside, which is in that cluster of pictures up there, was certified and a significant Glencoe structure in 1994, established as an honorary landmark in March of 2017 and demolished in 2018. And lastly, 615 Lincoln is a significant Glencoe structure from the Historic Preservation Commission in 1994, designed by Benjamin Marshall. We nominated it for a Landmarks Illinois property, and it is still pending its demolition at this point. We've continued to do research on ways to improve the ordinance and be more significant in our homes, and we met prior to this meeting with the Village of the Whole to discuss ways going forward, and we're trying to come up with better recommendations in the next month or so. And the last part is the architectural survey, which we started about 3 years ago. We continue to add properties to the historical survey, and we're going to do a little demo of it. Greg is going to do that. It's great. Greg, you want to do it from over here?
Is it okay if I speak like this?
Give him a microphone.
Wow, thank you. So as Tom mentioned, there's a lot of work and effort has been going into identify homes that are either landmark or historically significant. A lot of research not only on the home location, but also the architect and the history associated with each. So to bring that to life, the history to life, and to provide the community with a tool and better communication, you can see the development of this story map. So this is it's a list of the landmark properties. You can click on this one here. You can see the details. This is a Bensinger house, Mediterranean revival style. Architect was Howard Van Doren Shaw. When it was constructed, when it was certified as a landmark, and some history as it pertains to that particular home. That's also available for the historically significant properties, which I trust will appear any minute now.
There's so many, they take a while.
Nope. Same idea, you can click in onto the details to find details of that home, and you can zoom in to particular neighborhoods. It's a work in progress, but definitely a tool that the community can begin to interact with. That's up on the village website now.
So this is available through the village website, and anybody can get to it. It's a lot of fun to pick around your neighborhood and see what your neighbors are up to, which the significant houses are. And we are expanding. I think there are about 150 up here now at that point, something like that. We have quite a few to go, and we're continuing to add to it. We will be addressing structures other than homes within the next year or so. Public buildings, religious buildings, landscape, parks, such things, golf courses, all of which is in the future. So that's it for 2017. Thank you.
Quick question on that.
Sure.
You had further down listed a lot of homes that were being demolished or slated for
did.
demolition. They're not up here. Is that something that you could represent just to sort of show?
Up here on there, you mean?
Yes.
We hadn't thought of that. That would be another, because a good thought, actually. I appreciate that. That's a really good thought. We hadn't actually considered showing the ones that have been lost. It's going to take a lot longer to load, actually, unfortunately. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. We all are focused, of course, on the fact that come November we have an election coming up, and that tends to make us forget that we have another election village-wide for trustees and library board, et cetera, coming up next year in April, on April 2nd of 2019. But fortunately for us in the village nominating committee is in the process of organizing, getting ready to get candidates to stand for election in those for the committee. And Barton Schneider, the co-chair of the Village Nominating Committee, has asked me to read a statement from them just to remind our community of the coming election and the process for electing candidates. This summer and fall, the members of the Glencoe Village Nominating Committee will meet to identify, interview, and evaluate individuals who seek to serve on the governing boards of the village, the Park District, and the library. The committee's goal is to select the best available people for office. It is also the committee's duty to nominate a complete slate of candidates for these elective offices. The committee invites all residents to suggest names of possible candidates. Candidate applications are due August 15th at 5 p.m. And the committee invites everyone to visit the GlencoeCaucus.org website for details on how to get these nominating petitions and the things that need to be filled out. If there are any questions on that, I would be happy to answer them. But that's a very important duty for all of us to be aware of, and those are important time sites, and I invite everybody to visit the Village Nominating Committee's website. Our next meeting of the Village Board will be July 19th, 2018. And that brings us to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or things about items on the consent agenda?
Mr. President, if I could just go back a moment, I just wanted to mention that the School Board Nominating Committee is working simultaneously, approximately simultaneously with the village one, and I am sure they will be looking for candidates as well for the school board and for the New Trier School Board.
That's good that you educate us on
All
that.
right.
Thank you. All right, if there are no questions on the consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Listner?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney? Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
Okay. Our first order of regular business is consideration of a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute agreements with Tesca Associates in an amount not to exceed $45,880, and Hampton, Leeson, and Renwick for an amount not to exceed $53,588 for design and engineering design services for the Tudor Court Street and Streetscape Improvements Project. Dave, would you tell us a little bit about that motion, please? For resolution, I should say.
Yes, just a little bit by way of background. At the May 17th Committee of the Whole meeting, the village's planning consultant, Tesca Associates, presented an update on the conceptual design plans for Tudor Court. These plans represented the collaborative work over the last 12 months of Tesca working with staff, a stakeholder focus group, and the village board, and focused on the kinds of improvements that could be considered with a comprehensive street improvement and streetscape improvement on Tudor Court. Tesca presented the village board with 3 levels of redesign, if you recall, utility, comfortable, and memorable, that included a range of enhanced improvements beyond the baseline roadway resurfacing, curb relocation work, improved street lighting, and sidewalk restoration. Following discussion at this meeting, the village board directed staff to move forward with design of the street and streetscape improvements for Tudor Court at the higher end, memorable level. Funding for design and engineering services for Tudor Court is included in the bond fund of the fiscal 2019 budget. Presented for your consideration tonight are 2 design agreements for Tudor Court. Tesca Associates for the final streetscape design services, and Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick for the street improvements. Tesca is the village's planning consultant and has worked with developing the Tudor Court plans as an outgrowth of the downtown plan approved by the village board in 2016. Hampton, Lenzini, Renwick have been involved with the village's street improvements and been our primary street consultant for the past 30 years. The scope of work in the TSCA agreement includes preparation of preliminary and final streetscape plans, bid documents, and bid coordination. There are planned meetings with staff, the focus group, and the village board between the preliminary and final design stages to review proposed streetscape materials and further refine cost estimates. Likewise, the scope of work in the HLR agreement includes additional field survey, preparation of final plans and specifications, and assistance with bidding and permitting. HLR will work very closely with TSCA to incorporate the streetscape improvement plans in the final plan and specification documents. This same partnership occurred with TSCA and HLR for the Village Court parking lot improvements several years ago. The final design for Tudor Court is expected to include the various components reviewed and discussed with the board over the past several months, including new pavement with raised brick paver mid-block, crosswalk, benches, bike racks, landscape planters, and more street trees. The final selection of materials, infrastructure systems, and construction specifications will include sustainable options and practices where possible. In addition, the scope of design work includes closing off Glencoe Drive south of the Writers Theater driveway and the removal of the remainder of that pavement down to south to Tudor Court. This area will be restored and landscaped with grass connecting the Park District properties to the east and west. Future plans for improvements to this park area and potential improvements to the walkway west of the BMO Harris Bank drive-through will be addressed separately in the future. So, to summarize, staff supports the scope and the process recommended by TSCA and Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick, and recommends the board authorize the village manager to execute agreements with TSCA for design services for an amount not to exceed $45,880, and for HLR, Hampton, Lenzini, and Renwick for design engineering services for an amount not to exceed $53,588 for the Tudor Court Street and streetscape improvements. And with that, I would answer any questions.
Any questions?
All right, two quick questions, administrative. One, I thought we have granted the village manager the authority to go forward with projects under $50,000. Is that right? So is this a
25. That's under 25.
I thought we raised it from 25.
We raised it from 20 to 25. Right. but I'm tracking with you on that.
I'm assuming you're not turning that into a motion to now make it 60.
And then the other was, just for clarity here, these are contracting separately. There's not, one is not a sub for the other. And is there a rationale behind that?
They are contracted separately, and they will work collaboratively, and at the point that we're ready to assemble construction bid documents, Hampton Lenzini will take the lead. And that partnership has worked well in, as I said, in other improvements, and it's pretty typical with streetscape improvements, where once the streetscape design is finalized, and they'll be more involved in what is a phase 1 and a phase 2 engineering stage than Hampton will. Once we get past that stage, then Hampton will assemble plans, and there'll be two separate sets of plans that'll be combined as a bid document.
If you're comfortable, that sounds like you work with these guys for 30 years. Really good relationship. You're comfortable that collaboration happens and there's not finger pointing?
No, absolutely. No, we're more than comfortable with that relationship.
And lots of good results to sustain that. If there are no other questions, may I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Listner?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney?
Yes.
Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
Our next order of business is consideration of an ordinance granting a special use permit to waive minimum off-street parking requirements in the B1 zoning district for the properties located at 662-666 Vernon Avenue. Nathan, will you enlighten us on that?
I sure will. The building on the subject property was constructed in the 1920s as an auto storage garage, and over the years it has functioned as various uses. Many of you likely associate this building with the long-term use Books on Vernon and also Writers Theater. The property now has a new owner, which is the applicant for the special use request, and I will note that the applicant, or the owner, and his development team are in attendance tonight and can answer any questions you may have after my report. The new owner has plans that are in various stages for the first and second floors of this 1.5-story building. A permit was recently issued to Unify Fitness for the renovation of the entire first floor space into a private gym. According to village records, the second floor space, the use of the second floor space as an office dates back to the original construction of the building, and the approximate square footage of that second floor space is 1,500 square feet. Plans are proposed for the second floor space to be converted to a single residential apartment that would be for lease. This proposed change in use on the second floor from office to residential triggers the requirement to provide off-street parking per the zoning code. The required number of spaces for a single apartment unit in our central business district is 1.5 parking spaces per apartment unit. So, why is the applicant requesting the special use? The subject property has a large vacant area behind the existing building, which is to the west, that could potentially be used for parking. However, access to this area is restricted by a privately owned driveway that's controlled by the Friedman Properties development next door, and this area is also primarily fenced in. Therefore, it's not feasible to provide off-street parking on this property, and it's also worth noting that there is no off-street parking currently on this property. In conjunction with the village's requirements, on May 7th, the Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on the proposed special use request and approved a recommendation to the village board to deny the special use request for the parking waiver with 4 votes in favor of denial, 2 votes opposed to the denial, and 1 abstaining. The minutes of the public hearing were included in your packet. Staff would like to point out at this time that in terms of precedent, similar requests have been received in the recent past, one of which was in 2012 with the redevelopment of the Chase Bank in the downtown. At that time, a similar parking waiver was requested and was approved by both the Zoning Commission and the Village Board. It's also important to note that the downtown plan, the 2016 plan, supports the addition of residential units in the central business district. Should the Village Board not concur with the recommendation of the Zoning Commission for denial of the special use application, an ordinance is included in your materials for consideration granting approval of a special use permit as requested by the applicant. And if there's any questions I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
I guess I would comment that the request is fully consistent with what the Plan Commission would like to see occur here and with our past efforts in terms of development of the downtown to support the tax base, et cetera, and so that it seems to me that this is clearly something where we should grant the request of the petitioner. I think that the zoning board was concerned and thought that perhaps they would be able to work out the use of the space behind them with the Friedmans, and as we are well aware and as you have reported, that's been very difficult and is currently may or may not be likely. And all I would like to do is express, as the board does, that if we, as I think we should, approve this, in the event that that is actually worked out, we certainly would support if they want to go ahead and put the space back there and they came to us for changes to do that. This board, of course, would certainly support that.
I think it's also important just to clarify that what has brought this before you is the change in use. That if another office use were going to go in on the second floor, we wouldn't be having this discussion. There's various uses throughout the downtown on the first floor that when one business closes, another business opens. The majority of buildings in the downtown don't have any parking on site that they can offer. But the parking regulations do get triggered with a change in use and, just for your information, with a change in intensity of use. So if an existing building were to do an addition or were to increase, for instance, the number of tables in a particular restaurant or something like that, that may trigger the requirement to provide on-site, off-street parking on the property.
And one of the things is, we know according to our things that we're missing and that we would like to promote is actually the use that is requested here for housing on the second floor, because we have a very substantial need within the village for that, and inadequate housing stock. So this actually is trying to fulfill several important needs and that they're trying to accomplish, and certainly encouraging that by granting their request to waive the spaces we have on many other occasions is very rational. Are there any questions, or are we ready to vote?
You were there. What was the problem? This seems like something that would be supported by the zoning.
I think there were two things. Number one, there were some concerns raised, just again regarding setting a precedent. I'm not entirely sure where that came from, because they were reminded of the recent action with the Chase Bank redevelopment. I think more so was getting a little off focus of just the parking waiver and focusing on what could be in the future regarding some sort of potential agreement between neighboring property owners to provide them access.
So they're hoping Freeman would change the attitude of the access?
Possibly. And Friedman's been unresponsive to their requests.
And I would...
There was the, yeah, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah,
if Stu has anything further.
I think the only, the other part is that since this would be residential, this would be overnight parking, which I believe is not permitted in the lot. And so it was considered distinct from the Chase Bank. What we did recommend was from an analysis perspective, we told the zoning commission to not consider the space in the back to be available. It may be in the future, but for the purposes of whether they determine that this use warranted a waiver, to not take that into consideration.
And I would say, having discussed it with the zoning board and with the chair, they sort of lost focus in this, and while they hope always springs eternal, they were hoping that this might help facilitate discussions with Friedman. I don't think that that's a rational hope at this point in time, and one of the things we're going to have to think about is what to do about that at some point. And they also didn't think about at all the fact that we've done this a lot in the past, and adding one more and a car and a half, as I call it, of parking where we allow the parking for this type of unit will have no meaningful impact on downtown, and so this isn't going to impact any other policies. And frankly, granting it promotes the policies that we've adopted that have been recommended by the Plan Commission. If there's no other discussion.
I have a question. I support this. I'm happy about the redevelopment. My only question is, how does it get communicated to whoever the tenant will be, so that they're not surprised, unpleasantly so, by the fact that there isn't
that responsibility will be on the part of the building owner, much like the individual businesses in town are responsible for informing their employees of the designated areas to park. There are residential units in the downtown, many of them in some of the older buildings that don't have dedicated parking. There are areas outside of the immediate downtown where they can park, including even the commuter parking lot where you can park up to 48 hours. I do know that the building owner is also pursuing options to find rental parking that may be nearby off-site so that it, would make that unit even more attractive to a potential renter.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, it just seems that the Friedman properties are particularly unhelpful with the community. And, they should do more to help the community. I mean, they're a member of the community, and they rarely even respond to us. I think that's a problem.
This is a glaring example of that. All right, may I have a motion, please?
I so move.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Listner?
Yes.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney?
Yes.
Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
Thank you. The next order of business before us is consideration of a resolution authorizing a contract with Taylor Technology, Inc. to purchase Encode 10 Enterprise Resource Planning Software and first year's annual software fees in the amount of $377,017 plus $20,000 project contingency for a total of $397,017. And Sharon Tanner will tell us about this.
Thank you, President Levin, and good evening, members of the board. This evening, we're requesting your consideration of a resolution approving a contract with Tyler Technologies to purchase the Encode 10 Enterprise Resource Planning software. By way of background and as a quick refresher, an ERP software system is one that houses multiple applications and allows us to conduct multiple types of transactions in one software application using a common database instead of relying on separate pieces of software to conduct all of these applications. There are occasionally in municipal ERP environments standalone software products that are used to supplement the ERP if there are functions that aren't housed within the ERP. Although our goal is to house as much as we can under the ERP. You can see from this chart an example of the types of things that we expect to find within the ERP. Our present ERP system, Enterprise, was implemented in 2008 and it's primarily used for financials. In February of 2017, we began a comprehensive needs analysis process with all of our departments to take a look at our current and our future ERP needs. That led us to issuing a request for proposals. We received 2 responses and evaluated those throughout the fall time frame in a lengthy due diligence process that again involved all the departments. In December, we spoke with you about our recommendation to begin contract negotiations with Tyler Technologies to purchase Encode. And since that time, we've completed the contract negotiations and we have a contract that we're recommending that you consider approving. If you do so, then we'll move into the implementation phase of the project. The ERP project is budgeted in the fiscal year 2019 Community Improvement Program at a total of $800,000. And that $800,000 can really be placed into 3 buckets. The first is software and implementation support, which we're discussing this evening and for the software. And then we'll be back before you in July to discuss the implementation support piece. The other components of this are the server and storage hardware refresh project that would need to be completed regardless of whether or not we were going to purchase an ERP, but it is a best practice to align those 2 so that they're compatible and appropriately scaled. The third is purchasing any standalone software if any is needed. Right now we have not provisioned any, however, as we get into the details of the implementation, if we find that there is a piece of new supplemental software that we need, we would bring a recommendation to you as needed. Again, those 3 pieces put together combine the $800,000 project budget. As we budgeted in the Community Improvement Program, we are recommending the use of accumulated general fund reserves to purchase the ERP, And I would note that the entire purchase, or the entire project, will be spread over 3 fiscal years. So we will be making payments throughout that 3-year time frame, which I'll talk a little bit about more momentarily. Heading into the Encode system specifically, as we worked through the analysis process, we found that the Encode system particularly supported opportunities for process improvement. I say supported opportunities because the software itself is not going to provide for process improvement. The work that we're doing and we will continue to do to evaluate our business processes and think about how we can use the software a little bit differently will support it as a tool. We found that Encode has improved end-user functionality and reporting capabilities. It's built on current technology and available as a hosted or software as a solution environment, also commonly known as a cloud environment, which is what we're recommending purchasing. We found that Tyler demonstrated a commitment to future research and development of the Encode product, and most importantly, that it was appropriately sized and scaled for Glencoe and for our business operations. With respect to the contract, I'd like to give you a brief summary now. It's a 7-year term plus 3 optional 1-year renewals. Within that contract, the purchase structure is a one-time cost to build and configure the system, plus an annual software maintenance fee of $79,612. I would note that in years 1 through 7, that amount will not, that fixed annual software fee will not change. If we renew the contract in year 8, it may increase by up to 5%, but only in year 8. So if we extend into years 9 and 10, there would be no subsequent increase in those years. I would also note too that we pay an annual software maintenance fee for our current software of about $54,000 per year. Heading back into the Encode contract discussion, however, I would note that the professional service hours that we've built into the project budget with Tyler are only billed if used, so that provides some cost certainty in that regard. Tyler provides acceptable insurance and indemnification. They engage in appropriate disaster planning measures and have appropriate recovery plans in place should a disaster occur. And we worked through a process with Tyler to develop a comprehensive scope of work that led us to a defined implementation process that will guide our work over the next couple of years during the implementation project. The financial portion of the contract, as I had mentioned, is a one-time fixed, or is a one-time fee plus an annual fee. So I'd like to break that down just a little bit further for you this evening. The software itself has a fee of $297,405. The first year's annual fee is, $79,612, and we're including a $20,000 project contingency in this. The $79,000 annual fee is included in this request, and in subsequent years, we anticipate budgeting it as an operating expense in our annual operating budget, which is why we've only built in the first year's annual fee into this request. The $20,000 project contingency would only be used if needed. If it's not needed, it simply won't be spent. And should you approve our recommendation to proceed with executing a contract with Tyler, we'd move into implementation work. And on this slide, I've given you a snapshot of some of the activities that we'll be working on over the next couple of years during the implementation. The cycle will repeat a couple times as different, more than a couple actually, it'll repeat several times as different modules are brought online in our 2 to 3 year implementation period. I alluded to process improvement earlier, and I wanted to highlight that again here. Some of the activities that you see are process mapping. All of our staff will be involved from each department in reviewing our processes and contributing to the implementation effort. And our change management lead on our project team will be working with our staff to go through a series of process mapping exercises to help us identify areas where we might be able to slim down a process or reconfigure it to make it a bit more efficient. Our goal is to use as much out-of-the-box functionality as we can with the software instead of trying to retrofit it to fit our existing processes. So this work will really be key, along with continual user training with staff. We recognize that we won't be able to fully measure the benefit of the new software until we're fully live a couple of years from now. And we've had a few cycles of transactions under our belts, but some of the areas where we anticipate improved process efficiency are in payroll, financial reporting, purchasing, permits inspections, and some other of our operational areas. As we work through the implementation project, we'll bring quarterly updates to the board at committee of the whole to report on how we're doing with respect to implementation and if we're on time and on budget. So to summarize, our recommendation is to enter into a contract with Tyler Technologies to purchase the Encode 10 system. Should you approve that recommendation, we'll transition into implementation planning with Tyler. In July, we'll be back with a recommendation for implementation support services. And in the fall, the server and storage hardware refresh program recommendation. And then later, as needed, any standalone software. And again, we'll present quarterly updates on the status of the implementation project at future committee of the whole meetings. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? If no questions, may I have a motion?
Second?
May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Cornell? Yes. Trustee Lister? Yes. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney?
Yes.
Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business that anyone wants to raise? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
May I have a roll call?
Trustee Cornell?
Yes.
Trustee Lister? Yes. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Mulvaney? Yes. Trustee Thomas?
Yes.
Trustee Vree?
Yes.
We are adjourned.